Welcome to the Pickle Show. It is episode 9, which means, of course, it is interview time. I am delighted to welcome on a man who I know, give or take, probably 30 years, okay? If you have a special or an important day, this is the man who will make it even more magical and personal to you. It is, of course, Celebrant and Solemniser Gareth Matthews from Always and Forever. Gareth, we got there. Welcome to the show.
Kieran. Thank you so much, and thanks very much for having me on. It's an honor.
Delighted.
Great to see you again. We're saying 30 years, but it's probably a little bit longer than that.
It could be. I would have been 9. I'm thinking it's probably even more than that. I'm 39 now. I'm not getting any younger.
Mac, you're 39. I'm only 30, so I
must be getting you mixed up with an older brother or something. What I mean. Hey, but listen, no, honestly, it's great to have you on, and thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you wanting to come on for a wee chit chat. But look, I obviously know you, and I know everything that you do. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a celebrant in the first place?
Well, I'm a celebrant and solemniser, as you said. And what I do is I do life ceremonies for people who don't particularly want to go down the traditional route. So I can do anything from baby naming ceremonies to celebrations of life to weddings, so what to go. And how I got into it was when we were getting married ourselves 10 years ago. The celebrant we had was lovely, but the ceremony we had wasn't personal to us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that always stuck with me. So when I was turning a very special age, around 30, add on 10 years there, I was thinking to myself, I always wanted to do something like it. It always stuck in my mind. So celebrancy was a thing. So I decided to train as a celebrant and give couples and families the ceremony that they want, that one, reflects themselves, and two, their loved ones. So I take a very relaxed approach to it, so it's, if the couple come to me and they want a relaxed wedding, certainly we'll have a relaxed wedding and a bit of crack. But if someone comes to me and wants to have a formal affair, that's perfect as well. So I create a ceremony that's personal to the couple, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the exact same if it's a celebration of life or a funeral. I go into a family, we get the essence of who the person was, and we have a little bit of crack too as well. We tell their story. We'd be up there, we tell a few stories. We would, oh my God, we might have a few curse words too as well.
Has to be done.
Of life, especially with an Irish wake.
Yeah, which we all obviously know exactly how they go. You know what I mean? If there's not stories being told, there's cans being handed out out the back. You know what I mean, or something like that. It's always a very special way of doing a wake.
It's a very special way. So that's what I am in a nutshell. And I suppose for couples too as well, because some couples may only have a celebrant as a choice, if that makes sense. So if it's their second time getting married, they couldn't get married the traditional way, so they may want to come to a celebrant. So that's where I would come in and create a blended ceremony for themselves. So it's a bit of themselves, and they can add a bit of their tradition into it, should they wish.
Brilliant. And that's what I was going to say about personalizing ceremonies, because I know obviously we had mentioned something off air before we were talking, and that obviously you have to meet them, you get to know them, you know what I mean? But how much of how the word is getting to know them in a sense of how you word what you want to say, if you know what I mean, is that because as you said, you went through an experience where to you didn't feel really personal, you know what I mean? So you want to make sure that this couple, you know what I mean, has that personal feel. So are you kind of maybe getting to know them and then finding somebody else who knows them and being, here, tell me something, give me something juicy, you know what I mean?
No, I get what happens is there's an initial chat. So I would never put a couple under pressure to book, because it's a very personal choice from my own experience. So what I do is we normally would have a face-to-face meeting if they're local, or if not, we do a Zoom like this, and you can still have an effective chat. And we would chat for about an hour, get to know each other, see are we the right fit for each other, because that's vitally important. But we have the crack. So straight on, I say straight away that there's no airs or graces about myself. I am as you see me. So be yourself. I am not of anybody of authority. So be yourself. And that relaxes people straight away. And once they can see you can have a little bit of banter, you're having the crack with them.
It relaxes you.
It relaxes you. And then you get to know the couple. So you'd have a few of these meetings over, we'd say, the course of planning a ceremony. Yeah. So it's not just rock up on the day and I read out this. We would meet, because that just doesn't work. Yeah. So we would meet a few times. And at different occasions, I might ask, like, how did you first meet? You know, like, tell me about your first date.
Yeah.
And it can be anything from meeting online to meeting in the pub to meeting at a wake. I've heard it all.
Yeah.
And then about first kisses. So some people like to share a first kiss. And the reason why I get this little bit of information, it's not being a nosy owl fecker.
Yeah.
It's to connect with your guests. So you know yourself when you attend a wedding as a guest, you're just sitting there and you're really just thinking, when is this over so I can get a drink?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah.
We've all been there. So what I like to do is have it kind of interactive so that you're keeping the guests, you know, like present and in the moment. Yeah. You're speaking about stuff that is relevant. So when they hear somebody like, who takes out the bins? Because I'd ask some quick fire questions to the couple. Yeah. And I throw them into this. So I'd say, like, when asked who takes out the bins, who do you think it is? And then people would shout up a few answers. Yeah. It's a little bit, it's very relaxing, but it's very much the couple. Like I had a wedding and like, you know yourself, you're married too as well, as long as I am, if not a little bit longer. There's always one who puts out the bins. There's always one who controls the TV remotes or controls the lights, as we've seen earlier on.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Emma.
Or who's the better driver? So if I was to ask you who was the better driver out of the two of you.
Well, here's the thing. I never got going, Gar. I never did.
Do you not drive?
I still don't. I remember I grew up in a house that had no cars, right? And then when the eldest learned how to drive, what did she do? She drove off into town and never came back. So I was surrounded by non-drivers. So she is definitely the best driver in the house. However, I 110% do the bin stuff. Yeah, and she's not shouting in the background for once at me. So she's definitely not disagreeing with me.
Not disagreeing. And do you see that? That's what I like to get with a couple, is that little bit of banter. And then it's normally 9 times out of 10, the lad will say, oh, I'm the best driver and you should see my ally wheels when herself drives. And then I just say, well, which one of you has penalty points? And then it's a different
Yeah, the topic and the tone kind of changes just a little bit, so it does, like.
So that's what I mean about getting to know them. And then if it's appropriate, we'll include that in their story. Now, I would never say anything on a day that a couple would go, oh, he said we met on Tinder, or he said that I had penalty points. I would always send 1 or 2 drafts back and forward to the couple. So they would get to see exactly what I'm saying. So they could say, oh, Gareth, did we say that to you? Scrap that or add this bit in. Now, that doesn't mean that on the day they know exactly what's going to happen, because there's elements we do keep private. Because I get each one of them to describe each other. So like,
lovely.
Say you're the love of my life, my best friend. But some of them I've had it down through the years, pain in the backside. What you got? And when you're standing up there saying that in front of a group of people, your guests are connected because they can relate to. They can relate.
Yeah. They might admit to it, but they can relate to it, but they might admit to it.
Or when you ask who's always right, because this always gets Now, I'm not saying that the wedding is a pantomime. This is only a 2-minute section of the wedding ceremony, and it's the couple's story. And I like to share it before they say their vows. So the guests get an essence of who the couple are. And when you're having a little bit of banter like that, like, you know yourself, you got married, the nerves on the wedding day are escalated.
Yeah, massively.
It's massive. And I can only describe it as, and this is as adult form, is that it's the excitement of a child on Christmas morning. You know, that excitement level as an adult. That's what it's like experiencing it as an adult. So I always say, look at when you're walking up the aisle. You know, so to relax them, you tell that little story before they say their vows. So they're not standing there stuttering. And the nice thing about it too as well, if you fluff up your vows, you're saying it in front of someone you know. We'll have a little bit of a laugh and we'll get to say it again. It's not like you're fluffing it up in front of a stranger, you know. If that
exactly. And I think for me, that's like, I'm not a religious man at all. That's just being honest. I'm not. I'd fallen back into it a year ago, but then I fell back out of it again. And like, I always kind of very much am like, now this is just because I love Friends, right? So Joey from Friends obviously went and got ordained and was able to marry Chandler and Monica. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's like, if I only met my wife, obviously, like, say now, and we were going to be getting married, like, I would want somebody like you, because I know you. You know, that kind of way. I wouldn't want just some priest who thinks he might have got to know us in the space of 1 20-minute chat. You know, that kind of way. Like, I'd rather have somebody who actually knows. But like, as you said, you do it like drafts, not the final thing, because you have to say things that obviously don't. How does that, like, when you're writing them out, I'm not trying to put it like it's homework, you know what I mean? But like, But like, would you sometimes say like write something, read it, and go, oh no,
Yeah.
and be like, no, out.
When you started off at first, you were so clinical of what you were writing that it had to be perfect and
Yeah.
it had to. Where yes, to write a love story alone, which is about a 2-minute section of a wedding, would have taken me 6 hours, if that makes sense, because you're running through all the bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Where now you kind of know what works, what flows, how to word it, how to. Not that I'm saying every one of them's the same, but
Yeah.
you know how to word it to get time wise and stuff. So now, yes, you go down and do it, but I sometimes do write stuff and kind of go, oh gee, Mac, delete.
Yeah.
But you know what's a great thing? If there's one of those days where you're trigger happy and you want to get something off straight away, Microsoft Word has a dictate, and I just sometimes just verbal diarrhea into the dictate, and then I go back and edit it, and it's fantastic. And I think if you speak, if you write something the way you speak, it's more natural.
Yeah.
And it's more relatable to the couple. But what do you call it? Yeah, so some scripts, yeah. So we'd say they're called scripts, but the wedding ceremony, they're scripts. It's not that it's a pantomime, but they're scripts.
Yeah. Well, talking about pantomimes, I may as well let you know, right? Because after everybody else knows anyway, right? On Sunday, I am going for an audition in the pantomime. Right?
Which one?
Jack and the Beanstalk, right? So my daughter Emma has been in the last couple. She was in Cinderella last year with the Dundalk Music Society. I hope I got that right. And they were looking for a voiceover. So I thought, right, I don't want to be on the stage. I want to be, I'm not there like yet, you know, that kind of way. Like, so it was like a voiceover of the giant. And I was like,
and you can actually see it. I can hear it.
Like, so, you know what I mean? My fee, fi, fo, fum. You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking like that maybe. So, yeah, that's on Sunday. So, you never know, you might have to come to the town hall next year and hear my voice, my radio voice as a giant.
And can you imagine the excitement in your household from your two kids, knowing that that's going to be dad? What do you call it? There'll be some excitement there.
Well, that's me, because Emma's in auditioning Sunday morning, I'm in Sunday night. You know what I mean? So to get in with her would be like, it'd be incredible. So
was this the one that goes on after Christmas? We say right.
Yeah, it's January, like the middle of January or something. Yeah. So
isn't it great that all that stuff's back open, because that's you really missed during
So like, she obviously, before COVID kicked in and that, like, she used to do Funky Feet, and she had a show, and I mean, she had her first show like a week. I think it could have been days, if you know what I mean, before the first lockdown kicked in. And it was like, thank God she had that, because for everyone, we were trapped for fucking, like, you know what I mean? I don't even know how long at this stage. So I don't, like, it's like, I still think I'm 36 or 7, because I don't remember them two birthdays in those 2 years. Like, it just makes no sense. Like, but look, enough yapping about me talking crap. Like, come here.
Enough yapping about the pandemic. Let's move on from that.
Yeah, let's move on from all that rubbish that we talked about enough, for God's sake, when we had it. Like, you know what I mean? So, memories for yourself, right? I don't mean like name wise or anything like that, like, but was there ever something, whether it was a case that somebody asked you to say something, or a moment where you saw something during a celebration that was like that kind of heartwarming, like, oh God, like, you know what I mean? It gave you that inner kind of like, almost like, this is why I'm doing this kind of thing.
Oh, as in working as a celebrant?
Yeah. Was there any of those moments?
Every ceremony has one of those moments.
Yeah.
I am not saying it. Like, people say to me, are you not fed up listening to Christina Perri 1,000 years? Are you not fed up listening to the same vows? Because the legal vows can't change. I must say that. So every wedding, regardless if you get married in the church, or if you get married with myself, or if you get married in the registry office, they're legal, because it's the law. So that doesn't change, but everything else is completely, you know, to the couple. So there is always very special moments. There's moments where myself, you actually get up with the emotion. Not that you cry, because you have to hold that space. But there is certainly bits and pieces that you would actually, that they are wow moments.
Yeah.
Or you can tell the energy in a ceremony is fantastic. You can tell straight away if it's going to be an electrifying ceremony, or if it's going to be one where you're kind of going, okay, we need to do a bit more work here. Especially if a bride's late, that can bring the energy down.
Yeah, well, my wife made sure that I dropped in the word during this of Bridezilla, which of course is a common-ish enough thing. I'm sure you've dealt with a few.
Absolutely not. Would you believe?
No way.
No, not one Bridezilla have I dealt with.
Wow.
And I think that's because I have a nice part of the wedding day. I have the ceremony bit.
Yeah.
I think that might come out as in with the wedding planning or the finer details. We'd say dresses or shoes or whatever. If shirts, I see it. If the groom's shoes aren't the same or bits and pieces like it, you do hear the stories. But myself, no, because I have the fun part. I get to talk about them. So I haven't had bridezillas.
And you get to know them. Like that's the whole point. Like you mean, because you're making it that bit more personal, they don't have to worry about that because they know who you are.
Yeah, and they know that the ceremony is in great hands. And I'm not just saying that because they've met me, they know what I'm like, they've seen a draft, they know what it's going to be like. But that's not to say that you haven't heard stories. I have heard stories from other celebrants where stuff had happened, like but like there is bits and we could write a book at this stage. I have seen it all. I've seen it all from, we'd say, like, yourself from walking up the aisle. Ceremonies can be awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a situation we're not in every day. So you're standing there in a suit that you don't wear every day. Your beautiful bride is walking up the aisle and she's wearing a dress that she has never probably worn in her life, a ball gown or something. And then there's a dad or there's somebody walking up with her. So when you meet up there, I've seen couples bump heads where one has gone in for a kiss and the other has handed her bouquet here. So when they come back, there's a bump. Or I've had a few weeks ago, it was very funny. The groom was tall and it was the bride's mum who walked her up the aisle. And the bride's mum was smaller. So when the groom went down to give the mother-in-law a kiss, at the top of the aisle, his shoulder hit her hat and
my God,
straight over. So you see it all. So you have to laugh at that.
You have to laugh at that. Like, that's an icebreaker in a sense.
And I always say to couples when I meet them, accidents do happen. Stuff like this happens. So you may as well just go with it. Don't stand there and go, oh, because then everybody will go like that. So I would jump in there and say, didn't I tell you this is an awkward moment? Like, are you all right? Like, wait, we get you sitting down and stuff. That kind of way. But I've seen it all. I had seen recently enough where a bride's dress split, as she sat down. You could just imagine, like, that's somebody's worst.
Without a doubt.
What we done the ceremony, and I don't know if you ever watch my videos, or if anybody watches the videos, have a closer look next time.
Yeah.
You see a brown box on every ceremony table I have. It's an ornate box. So that's not a trinket, but that's not an ornate box. Inside that is inhalers, should someone need an attack. There is bobby pins because so many veils fall off.
Yeah.
There's sewing kits. So let me tell you, that sewing kit came out that day.
Yeah.
So it's all those little bits and pieces that down through the years you realize you need. Mints, because the groom might have had a drink before the bride walked up the aisle and he's reeking a Guinness or reeking a something. And it's like, here, have that mint quickly. That sort of stuff. So that little ornate brown box is full of all trinkets. So I'd say if somebody opened it and say this is a travel.
And so, like, I know obviously with my own wedding, and I'll tell you in a second, but as you're at the top of the altar, right, and as you said, the groom's standing there, the bride's walking up, right, did you ever have to maybe kind of have a chat with the groom if we got maybe a bit overwhelmed, or whether he got a bit kind of emotional? Was there ever a moment where you had to nearly kind of give him a wee tap and just be like, hey, you mean, like, everything's
pull yourself together.
Yeah, slap, like, you know what I mean?
You know what? And I'm all the weddings I've done so far, and the grooms are probably looking at me now. This one, I still have to do a wedding where a groom hasn't cried.
Hasn't cried.
And that's I always say this to the grooms, and especially because they're emotional moments. And like when you're seeing the love of your life walking towards you, doesn't regardless if it's who it is, you're going to be emotional. So I always would have tissues ready, but I would always let the groom know that. So I would go over and slip a little tissue into their hands. But I did have, and like, see at the beginning, like I always do a little bit of housekeeping beforehand. You ask, like, doesn't our groom look dapper today? And he's cool as ever, cool and collective, isn't he? But I do remember one where I did have to ask him, does he need me to stop? Because he was so upset. Not at the fact of getting married. He was overwhelmed by the emotion. But you know what? It was lovely because this is one of those moments you were talking about. When the bride reached him at the top of the aisle, obviously she calmed him down or calms him down. The two of them just touched foreheads and they stayed there for about a minute. Now, obviously, you read the crowd, you step back. I told everyone to take a seat.
Yeah.
I stayed back, let them have their moment. And that's what I always say, have your moment. There's no rush here. This is your day, your time. So then he calmed down then because she was. So I always say to couples, how nervous are you going to be on the day? Because this is something valid. You don't know how you are, but you know yourself how you're going to be. Like I would know I would sometimes be a nervous person. Now, I don't mean nervous doing a ceremony. I can get up and do a ceremony, no problem. But get me to speak in a room full of 2 people or 3 people, I'd be like, it's really unjust. So I would always say to the couple, if you can have breakfast together, take that bit of edge out of it, of seeing each other. Just because you see each other in the morning isn't like the old wives' tale where you're going to, it's bad luck. Poppycock. Have breakfast that morning, like calm each other down and then go off and get ready, the 2 of yourselves. And that sometimes 1 or 2 couples have done that too as well, and that takes the edge off, especially if the couple.
Yeah, exactly. But see, that's what I was going to say. So nobody offered me a tissue, right, on the day of my wedding. So I had my best man Ray standing right beside me, who was feeding me. He was feeding me a hip flask of, I think it was like Jack Daniels or something like that, right? Because he was trying to calm me down, okay? And then I eventually got calm, and you can see it like on the DVD, the video, like, you know what I mean? I saw her coming up and I just burst into these tears, because the mental thing for me was, and I never expected this, right, was I suddenly had this moment of flash where I was like, oh my God, my mom and dad aren't here. You know what I mean? Like, where I was like, this is weird. I'm getting married, and like the 2 people who you expect to kind of be there in a sense, just not for everybody, but you know what I mean? In general, when you're getting married, you'll be thinking, like, you know what I mean? And I think that just, it kind of smacked me in the face as like this realization of, and I kind of just like broke down, and I was like, here, come on, come on. Like, because I didn't know how to because I didn't think I'd be like that. But
no, you see, and you don't. And like, did you mock your parents during that ceremony, like with a candle or something? I suppose 12 years ago, it wasn't a done thing.
I'd honestly say no. I wouldn't imagine so, if you know what I mean. Like, hey, so I wouldn't.
You see, like I always say to couples, because I like to do a remembrance piece during the ceremony, especially if it's something like yourself, who both parents are no longer. I think it's vitally important to acknowledge them, because if you don't, something would happen like what would happen to yourself. Where if you knew you could acknowledge them later on, it's probably we'd say so. Like with the remembrance, I always say to remember them, and the simplest way to do it is light a candle. Or I have a wedding coming up. I'm not going to say when, but it's soon. What do you call it? And they're doing 2 seats of honor where their parents should have been. So they're actually going to put a photograph of the parent on that seat, because that's where they should have been. And that's what it is. But you know what? Like, see yourself, I had a few couples who didn't want to mention their loved ones during a ceremony, and that's fine, because it's not my ceremony to dictate what you should or should not do. I just advise. But each one of them, when the doors opened and the bride went to walk in, had to close again because she got overwhelmed with the emotion, and something similar to yourself. What you call it. So it's vitally important. So but like it is, no matter what you do on the day, we do remember our loved ones.
Exactly.
I've done a ceremony. I don't know if you believe in afterlife or something like that or anything, but and that's a whole different conversation and stuff. But as you know, I do funerals as well as weddings, so they're quite. They're quite sacred spaces, if that makes sense, because there's a load of love in the room, regardless of what kind of a ceremony for that person. I done a wedding, and one of the parents was no longer with us, so we lit a candle, and that couple wanted to share a lovely story, so we did. And they thought they were going to get upset, so we said we'd play a lovely piece of music, right?
Lovely.
So I could actually feel the emotion in the room. So it's my job to get the energy back up, because you don't want the energy to drop. So in a nice way, I said, listen, was going to be in the bar tonight or pulling up that dance floor, when you come back? And they said a bit of both. I says, well, tonight, raise a glass for that person and tear up the dance floor, and then that kind of, everyone's kind of, because you brought that person back to the present, if that makes sense. So they were there. But would you believe, when I blew out that candle at the end of the ceremony, it relit? Now, I don't mean relit like it just lit. I never seen a flame like it. It went like this and lit. And now, to tell you, my hair was standing on my arms, let me tell you. But that person, what I was told, like that person was letting me know that, thank you, or that they were still there. So I acknowledged them and said, you're more than welcome. So I'm not saying I'm one of these,
I know, but that stuff's like vitally important, because I don't care who you are, there's always that element that you need to believe in something. You know what I mean? Like, I know somebody, because I was only told this the other day actually by their father, that somebody I know that got married recently, a butterfly went in to the wedding, right? They had lost a loved one, and a butterfly went in, but it went out and it went straight back in, and it stayed for the whole ceremony. And like, you know what I mean? People listen are going, it's just a butterfly. He was just flying around, he came in. No, like, sometimes you need to read more into something.
You need to read, and especially if it's something like, if it's a butterfly that flutters past, these are all signs.
Yeah,
that what you call it, that your loved ones do, and you don't know yourself. Like, the bride or groom or the person may have asked for a sign. I'm not saying that, I'm not here to preach about anything like afterlife or anything like that, but what I'm saying is, doing both sets of ceremonies between funeral and stuff, you do see things that make you question some things, if that makes sense. So, but nothing frightening, just absolutely nothing.
And it's all loving. Like, it is all loving. There's not, as you said, it's nothing frightening. And maybe what the biggest kind of fear is for people like that, or even say people like me in that situation, is I mightn't have felt comfortable bringing it up myself, but when somebody else brings it up in a loving remembrance kind of way, it does just bring you down to earth and helps you obviously enjoy everything that little bit more. So it does, like.
Yeah, so it's vitally important. I done a wedding recently and it was lovely. So they done a lovely remembrance, and it was their parents would say, like decanter. So they had it full of whatever drink it was. And as the guests were leaving, each one of them took one of the glasses and raised a toast to the parents, and it was the parents' actual own crystal. So that was that couple's way of including it. And you know what? It was lovely and special. And that's what I mean. That's what I love about what I do. Every wedding ceremony, every ceremony, regardless of baby naming, funeral, whatever, they're all different and they're all unique. And that's the way it should be. It should represent the person and what their beliefs are, and like what they would like included in it.
Brilliant. And so we said you're doing this now. How many years are you doing this now? How long are you fully fledged?
I'm doing this fully fledged, full time from 2020. What do you call it? But I done my training as well before that, so it took me 2 years to train.
As any, like, obviously that was in the smack bam. Well, no, obviously you've gone through the smack bam of COVID.
Smack bang of COVID was when you actually fully started. Like, you had a full diary of weddings for that first year, and that's when you went, right, I'll go into full time into this. And the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden you were like, So it went from weddings to celebrations of life. What do you call it? And then you did do an odd wedding during it, if that makes sense, because there was still weddings happening of 6 or 10 and stuff. But it wasn't really until, we'd say, the restrictions really lifted, that they were around the 100 mark, that you were back out. So last year, you could imagine it was mental. We were up and down the country. You were in Kerry, you were in Donegal, because everybody was rescheduled. So you were
it's right. Sure.
Yeah, you couldn't turn around and say you're not available. Where you were taking bookings, like, you wouldn't take a booking for Donegal today and take one for Kerry tomorrow. That's unrealistic. You couldn't. Where last year, I'd say that celebrants up and down the country, we were passing each other on the motorways.
Hello.
As we were going from venue to venue. Where this year it's back to normal, as in back to your normal kind of bookings, if that makes sense.
But like, obviously, when you look on your pages, which we'll obviously, whenever we're finishing, we'll get you to mention where everybody can find you in that. But like, if somebody does contact you, obviously, like you just said, from Kerry, from Mayo, from Drogheda, you know what I mean, whatever, like you are a nationwide.
Travel nationwide. And again, it's not that you're traveling, we'd say, for the business as such. You're traveling because you connect with that couple. It's a personal thing. Like, we're not in this business for the money. And people think, oh, sure, you don't rock up and do half an hour. The couples know you don't do half an hour. What do you call it? We're not in it for the money. You certainly aren't going to buy a Rolls Royce with it. But it is such rewarding work. There is not one day I get up saying I have to go to work. Now, in saying that, there's not one day where you have a Friday or Saturday. Some people say, what are you doing the weekend? That's your busiest time.
What do you think? What do you think I'm doing this weekend?
What do you think? That's exactly what I got. I said, well, I'm going to either marry a couple, or what you call it, or you're doing a celebration of life. At the moment, it's still wedding season. As in, when I mean wedding season, you know yourself, summer is the busiest time. So they're like running around, like, from venue to venue. But what I like about it is that we only do, most of our celebrants only do one wedding a day because it's one couple's special day. So we are there for you on that day. So regardless of what, so I've had a bride who was an hour late. That was no problem. The only thing it's eaten into is your dancing time at the end.
Yeah.
I'm not running off to another ceremony. There is some celebrants out there who would be city-based. They might do two. Not saying all city-based would be.
Yeah.
I'm just they might do two because the venues might be close. So what you call it? But for myself, I don't think I'm very much a one day couple. You know, so you give that couple that undivided attention. Like we'd say last week, a couple wanted a wedding outside. Weather was a little bit dodgy. You know, that's all right.
Yeah.
Half hour. We'll wait and see will the weather change. You know, where if it was, we'd say traditionally, or if you were doing it different routes, it's a set time and that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
and but like you said, you're there to make sure that they have the day that they want to have, not what they're being forced to have because of a clock. You know what I mean? Like oh, you have to get married this time, like
at this time, or stuff like that, and that suits some people. But just for the couples that come to me, they want a little bit more, you know, relaxed. And I've done every venue from, we'd say, castles right down to hotels, and every couple, you know, is unique, and it's lovely. So like you're going into a 5-star hotel versus a 3-star hotel. There's no difference in the ceremony. Some people think that if you go into a higher end venue, do you act differently? Absolutely not. Because you're not there for the venue, you're there for the couple. You made the connection with the couple, and then that's just it.
Well,
the only place you can't get married is your back garden. So you can get married anywhere else but your back garden.
Jason, I've lovely lights out the back garden. It'd be lovely lights out the it'd be like, I have to reference Friends again. It'd be like Phoebe and Friends when she got married at, say, Central Park. Any Friends fans will love that.
There. And if yourself, and is Emma your wife, is it? Is that what
No, Avril's the wife. Emma's my little awesome daughter.
And Avril, want to renew your vows now because you're what, 11 years?
I have that wrote down right here. Okay, right. That I was going to ask you, right? Is there? Does that only happen at certain years, or can people do that at any stage?
At any stage at all. What do you call it? I've had so many people got married, we'd say, during the pandemic, and come out and had what they thought was a vow renewal, but we still done a wedding ceremony. Just the legalities were done. But some people would get, like, I've had vow renewals for 3 years. I've had vow renewals for 10, vow renewals for 15. It all depends. Each couple is completely different. I always think when it's right for yourself. And again, it's the same kind of a ceremony. It's round you. So if you want to rock up that aisle to Highway to Hell, and we have had it. And again, we'd share your story, if that makes sense. So it's a celebration too as well. So, and if you want to renew vows, that's the thing.
Well,
just to make you go,
it's something that I thought would be a cool thing to do at some stage. You know what I mean? Now, she might not, but I thought it would be.
Running out.
Yeah, you know what I mean? She's like, why the hell would I want to renew them? Like, you know what I mean? She said them wrong the first time. She doesn't want to say them wrong the second time. Like,
well,
you know what I mean?
I see a vow renewal. You can do that in your back garden because there's no legalities.
There we go.
Legalities. I want to trash the dress, like, would you not want to get back into the dress? You know that whole thing, trash the dress.
Yes. No, I don't think I wouldn't get back into the dress now. I don't think it'd fit me. So I wouldn't, like, in fairness, like, hey. But no, look, what I was going to say to you was as well, we live in a very different world than we did when I got married. You know what I mean? Like, literally. Rightly so. Anybody can marry anybody. That's the whole point of being alive and living in a world that's meant to be kind of proper, like, right? Like, in your, I suppose, in the time you've been doing this, have you seen anything that's been a little bit kind of like, that's really cool, that's a bit bizarre, that's I wouldn't have thought of that. Like, has there ever been anything where you've been saying, right, this is what we're doing on this one, where you're kind of like, I'd never seen that before and I love it?
I suppose, and you know what, this is the mad thing about it, is that every couple is different, and I keep saying this to you. So every ceremony is different. So there is some ceremonies where you do see something where you're kind of going, oh, I like that. Like, I had a bride and groom recently enough too as well. Everything's recent because like it's summertime. The bride didn't want to walk up the aisle with anybody. She didn't want it to be given away as such. Now, I never say who's giving you away. I'd always say who's walking you up the aisle or who's accompanying. But this particular couple, they didn't want that. So we'd say in the venue, there was double doors. So the bride stood this side, the groom stood this side. So she was really nervous about walking up the aisle. So when the ceremony started, the doors opened and the bride stood in, met her groom, you know, so they've seen each other there for the first time. And the two of them walked up the aisle together.
Brilliant.
What do you call it? And it was lovely. So they still had that element of not seeing each other until the ceremony started. But there was none of this. She didn't want to walk up on her own, but didn't want to walk up, with somebody. So
see,
that
that's great though. Like, it's doing your own thing. It's like you keep saying, like, it's making it your day. You know what I mean? You don't have to follow this weird ass tradition where you must have this person give you away, walk you up the aisle. It doesn't have to be like that.
No, it's changed, like in especially the past 3 to 4 years. Like wedding celebrants were always kind of there the past 10 years, but we'd say ceremonies like we'd say baby namings or funerals have really come to the forefront in the past 4 or 5 years, like, which is great. But with the weddings and stuff, like, it is really what suits you. Like, I've had couples walk up with their children, and I know that happens traditionally too as well, but like walk up as a family. Or like I always say, like, people say to me, like, we've young kids, what if they're running about? So what if they're running about? You don't have to be cool. Like, if they went, like, I had done wedding ceremonies where there was a 2-year-old on one of the parents' hip. That's fair enough, like, because that's your family, that's your unit. Have it, do what's comfortable. You know yourself, you're at the stage now, you have a 3-year-old. You have a 3-year-old sitting down for 30 minutes. Boom, 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 boom.
Never. Never. Unless you just take a tablet in front of them or something, or a phone, like, you know what I mean? Like a Peppa Pig.
Well. So I always say that kind of way. Some couples decide to, where we say traditionally, they'd walk in with their bridesmaids first, and then that's this, or the bridesmen, or something that's quite popular now, or we'd say groomswomen. That's quite popular. But I've done a few weddings where the bridal parties walked in at the same time. So the best men and groomsmen, we'd say, walked in with the bridesmaids. So the whole party walked in. The groom was the only one standing up the top by himself. And then I done one where the groom was walked up by his dad, and then the bride was walked up by her dad. Like, it's what suits you. There is no rule book here. It's what suits you as a couple or as a family. Like that. That's just it. But it's lovely. But it's like, it is a very rewarding job. I love it. There's not one day, like I said, that I have to say I have to go to work. There's not one couple that you ever say, I have to see this person, because it's a two-way thing. Like, if a couple connect with you, you connect with that couple too as well. We're not in it to take bookings to say, right, that's it. Although probably I get in trouble for saying that. If my accountant is watching, he said, you have bills to
You're like, no.
But it is a very thing too as well, because if I don't think we're the right fit either, it would be so wrong of me to say, yes, I will do your wedding.
And like, that has happened, I'm guessing. Like, that obviously, like, I'm sure at least once, maybe. Like,
no, because I can't say that, Kieran. So it has never happened. Never happened. No, it's not that it's not fair to the couple. I would always say to the couple that you, like, if they feel a connection, that's perfectly fine. But if I feel there's something, like, I'm not going to say, but if there is a feeling, or if there is, like, we've seen it all, like, if there was a disagreement between a couple in front of yourself, well, then it's very hard to move past, if that makes sense. Like, what do you call it? So it's a two-way thing. It's a very personal thing, but it's flying. Like, I don't, like, I know I'm saying to yourself, if anybody's following my feeds, my lives are the most recent weddings, as in my reels, but the posts I put up are from about 3 or 4 months ago, because it's unfair of me to put up someone's wedding when they got married today. Because we don't want to advertise that they're away on honeymoon for the next 4 weeks, or 4 weeks is a blessing, for the next week or so.
It's a dream.
It's a dream. Or some people so that's why, if you're looking at some of my posts now and there's no leaves in the tree, winter hasn't struck yet. But I just like to hold off on it. And then you like the couple to settle, because you get permission to see, can I put that photo up? It's not, what do you call it? It's not like that kind of way. So it's a very personal thing again. So it's lovely. So there's not one day, although my husband Patrick, he says, when am I going to see you? I said, well, here's my calendar.
There's a calendar there for a reason. Just have a look.
Have a look and slot yourself in there for a few slots, and we'll go out for dinner. I know it's not like that at all. But what it is that you try to make yourself, like, most couples work during the day. So during the day, I'm either doing, we'd say, celebration of lives, or you're writing couple ceremonies, right? So then the evening time is when it really kicks off, because everyone's home, kids are in bed, couples are settling down, and that's when you end up doing your consultation type things with them, their meetings and stuff like it, because they're all settled. And 9 times out of 10, it's over Zoom like this, because they're sitting in a hoodie after doing a day's work. And I could be sitting this side in a hoodie too as well, saying, so how was your day? Have you got a glass of wine there in front of you?
But what I love is on the post that you put up, like you do the wedding testimonial. I love that page. Where I love that. I actually saw there's a girl I work with who I believe sang at one of the weddings. It was a girl called Sinead Cooney. I played her music before on the show, so I have as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I loved like how, in a sense, it's I suppose it's also a plug for her in a sense, you mean, for something like that. But like the testimonials are great. Like, you know what I mean? Like there was one here I'm looking at, it was like, we can promise that you will not be let down by choosing Gareth. Thank you very much again for the very best of days. He made everything seem so easy and straightforward. He put us both at ease right away. He is one for a bit of crack, which is always welcome. Like, I think that, you know what I mean? That's a great way of summarizing your own wedding, if that's the way that you can put it.
And that's it. And like I always say to a couple, crack, it doesn't have to be a Jimmy Carr sketch.
Yeah.
Once you're relaxed, like, because we're Irish, like, so we do slag each other. So we are Irish. So what do you call it? So have a little bit. How are you feeling? Are you all right?
Yeah.
Really, Mac, if you see him 2 minutes ago, he was shaking. Just go that kind of a way. Yeah. But I think it's important for couples to see, like, they are real testimonials that what do you call that? That's why I put the picture with them too as well. Do you know that what do you call that? They can actually see. So if they meet him in town, did you say that about him? Because they'd say in town, no, that fellow was absolute.
Yeah.
But I do like every couple is special, and I'm not just saying that. Every wedding is special. Every wedding, I haven't, like, you do become friendly with them, and I don't mean that, like, but you do. But you know what's nice, Kieran, too, as well? You're invited back into the families, and I don't like. I've done for families weddings, funerals, baby namings, and to get a call, like, especially if you started with that family as a funeral, to get a call for a wedding.
Yeah.
It's such an honor, because like they're seeing you at the most devastating time, and like I'd be associated with that time, if that makes sense, even though that you might have given the best celebration of life you could for that person.
Yeah, I think that says a lot. That says
being invited back to do a wedding or a baby ceremony is lovely and such an honor. And there is some families out there I have made some fantastic connections with. And if you're watching, you know who you are.
Yeah.
What do you call
Follow
it?
the show page, okay?
Posting it up, I'll be saying follow. So it is such a real honor. And you know what? Over time, it's just getting more like, yes, it's getting busier and busier and busier, and it's fantastic. But you're there to help people. You're there to help people celebrate ceremony. You're there to help families. And especially, I know we didn't talk too much about the celebration of life side of it. They are lovely too as well. And we won't talk about it because we don't want to break. But like that, it's similar to a wedding. We get the essence of the person. We tell stories. We play the music that they would have liked. So if it is anything that they want, I have done when it's cremations. I have done Highway to Hell, where that was their last song going in behind the curtains. I've had some Liverpool supporters who they went behind the curtain to You'll Never Walk Alone, and to hear a room full of people singing that to you, my Lord, it's so powerful. And it's lovely. So if you leave people, and this is going to sound corny, but if you leave people in good grief as well, if it's a celebration of life, so that they know at the end of it, we have given mum or dad or whoever it was the best send-off that we possibly could have, that was personal and meaningful to them. And if you wanted a bit of religion in there too as well, by God, we can play a hymn, say a prayer. There's nothing to say.
It doesn't have to just be one way, or it doesn't have to just be the other way. Like, so it doesn't. Well, I was at one of them recently enough, and it was like that. It was a celebration of life. And I actually love that term. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's anything I really heard or noticed before. It was always like funeral. That's just the word, obviously, that's associated with it. But like, this was a celebration of life. Like, there was music on, there was Oasis playing, there was different songs on. You know what I mean? Like, and it was like, this was the right way. You know what I mean? Like, of
celebrate that person, to honor that person's life.
Yeah, and like, we all think, well, maybe not we all. I'm just a wee bit obviously cuckoo in the head. Like, but like, I always like think about that day. You know what I mean? Like, of when that day might come. Like, and like, everything changes in your mind because you see something else and you're like, I love the way that happened. I love the way that was done. And I love the way this was done. And like, I think it's really just opening up eyes to it doesn't always have to be traditional. In that you
No.
don't have to only go this way. You don't. You know what I mean? Like there is choices out there.
There's choices. There was a funeral I done recently, and I'll not say who it was, but obviously because you never would. But it was really family focused. And what I loved about it, and this is one of those standout moments too, as well, is do you know in a traditional wedding, or if it was like a cremation, everyone's seated as the person is going in behind the coffin, or if it's a church, we're following. When we were saying the final goodbye, which is like a committal, which is like we'd say, you know, like the last kind of received, you know, that kind of a way you'd say in a church. So we would call it the committal, the last goodbye. So that particular funeral, the immediate family got up and stood round the coffin hand in hand as we said our final goodbye. And like we were just saying, we let you go, we release you. So that person, their loved one, was surrounded by their love, if that makes sense. You know, so it's very much very personal. And by God, that was an apple in the throat day for myself. But you had to hold it together. But you know what was the lovely thing about it? And if they're watching too as well, with that ceremony sticks out in my head so much. That last song was such a dance beat. So what do you call it? So when, you know, it wasn't like You'll Never Walk Alone.
Yeah.
This was a dance beat. And I was driving yesterday to a ceremony. It came on the radio. And I was completely brought back there. And yes, it's a horrendous time. But if you've seen the laughter and people kind of swaying and dancing around that person as their last goodbye, that sticks into your head and that sticks into your mind and very personal, you know. So that song would always be associated for that for myself. And I sang down the road yesterday going to that ceremony, that song. So that's the nice thing about it. It's nice to be able to comfort people no matter what it is.
And that's the biggest thing. It's about comfort in moments like that. You know what I mean? Like it's a celebration of life. You need them to, if they can in that kind of moment, if they can break a smile out in this moment of remembering something that is related to a song that they know that person did something, or they you know, it's just trying to just take that split second of no, I don't mean happiness, but you know what I mean, of remembering that happy moment.
Yeah, so as them as a family, like when they remember back to that moment, yes, it was horrendous. But it was like the laughter and the love in the room, and we were kind of not dancing around like as if we were alternative. We weren't, but people were swaying, and we were kind of laughing when the beat came in, and we were like kind of going, "Oh God, that's dead," you know.
Brilliant, okay.
You know, so they look back on that, and that's what I mean. Leaving families in good grief is that they're leaving there saying, "We give our loved one the best send-off we possibly could," if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
I was at a funeral recently the traditional way, and it was equally as nice. You know, so there is horses for courses, you know, so it's whatever suits you as a person. I always say that it's whatever suits the person, that's the route they should take.
And it's like we're not doing this interview to say to people, oh, here we all want you to only go down this route. Forget about the traditional. That's not the point. It's simply just making everybody aware of you can do
this. And I'm very much clear and a believer, and like I see it myself. There is a huge amount of belief out there, huge amount of belief, but people may not want to celebrate it in the traditional way. And that's where the likes of myself would come in. And I don't mean that, but this is where, can we do this, but also have this? Yes. What do you call it? And then some people are afraid that you can't do like a burial in a traditional graveyard. Yes, you can. I've done burials in graveyards. I've done burials, you know, like in natural burial grounds. There's loads of places you can actually do, because people think when you're a celebrant, it's only cremation. Not at all. Like you can do ceremonies. You can't do ceremonies in a traditional venue like a church. Because I'm not a priest. But you can do them in a funeral home, the person's home. And then we would go to the graveyard or the cemetery for the burial, you know, like for the final part. Or I've done 1 or 2 funerals completely at the graveside. Where obviously summertime, the depths of winter. So different. So some people may want a celebrant, but they mightn't go that route because they don't like the idea of cremation. You can still use a celebrant and have a burial. What do you call it? Which is vitally important. But again, it's like education, and the conversation we had before this all starts. With more conversations need to happen about certain things to educate people. And it's not saying it's like to educate people that people don't know. It's just this is new for everybody. Do you know, like celebrancy, funeral celebrancy especially is new. What do you call it? So have the conversations and stuff like that, and don't be afraid of it. We're very much Irish. If we talk about it, we'll attract it. Not at all. You see, when I was doing the funeral side of my training, the conversations we had at home, were something shocking.
God.
What would you like? And when you actually sit down and say, what would I like? Just when you were saying earlier, what would we like? Because I still don't know.
No, yeah.
It changes from week to week. Certainly, I would definitely love what that person had when the family were around the coffin at the end. That certainly, yes, I would love. What do you call it? But as in what music and stuff, I don't know.
Yeah, and like you get to see, like you said, like that's something that you saw and you were like, you know what I mean, kind of, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, throat kind of like, you know what I mean, like, and it's like in a sense, you get not that for you planning your own, I mean, like, but you get to see these things literally firsthand, where you're like, wow, that is an incredible way of doing that in your own kind of, you know what I mean, in your own family way. People mightn't think about it. Like people might just think, right, we have to sit or stand and then walk, go past, and you know what I mean. That's it. Like
another one, and not to dwell on the funeral side of it. I've done another one where it happened at home, and the coffin was open, obviously, and everybody shared a story. It was like an open mic night, if that makes sense. So everybody shared a story, like a wake. But you could imagine the laughter in that room, the tears. And then somebody whipped out a guitar, and there was a few sing-songs along it too as well, you know, like, so it's like everybody's different, and you're still, regardless of what your belief, if you believe in an afterlife or a heaven, you're still going to go there. You're still going to go if you have a traditional or this, you know, like, but it's like, it's the love.
Yeah. Well, look,
there, Kieran, didn't we?
No, look, I think it was very important that we tried to talk about both sides here, because as you said, I'm learning from literally looking at your page, from speaking to you. Like, as you said, it is an education thing. God knows I spoke for years about we need to learn about mental health, and we need to let people talk about that. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things out there that people don't talk about, don't know about, and won't question it. You know what I mean? So my hope is that from when this show goes out, that people will listen to it, but will also either learn from it or be inquisitive. Will it be like, why have questions about this? You know what I mean? I'd like to know a little bit more, you know what I mean, like about it. So look, obviously we can't end this without telling everybody where they can find you. Okay, so where does everybody find you?
Well, this is like I feel like an owl person here when it's like the handles. It's like the hashtags. I am on Instagram as always and forever Celebrant. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all the platforms, even on the TikTok.
Yeah.
My website is alwaysandforever.ie. So you definitely find me there, and it has all the links to my social medias. But the Instagram, I suppose, is the one that is the most popular at the moment. So it's always and forever Celebrant. You'd always catch me on there. Always catch me on there. I know, Kieran, you've been trying we've been bouncing off each other this past couple of weeks.
Look, at times you are a busy man. I'm certainly not, but you are a busy.
Yeah. And you see, people think that when you're finished the ceremony, that's it, you're done for the day. But you could be going meeting a family in the evening. You could, like, most of my evenings are spent doing prep for a ceremony, and my daytimes are spent with either writing, prepping, or meeting couples who work shift work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course
so
it does.
Even though I'm not on Facebook, or if I'm not on social media all the time, this is my full-time baby. This is what I do from Monday to Sunday.
That's why I thought, you know what, I'll get him on WhatsApp. So I will get him on WhatsApp. So
I always say that, because that's one of the things with the couples. When we actually, wedding couples, when we actually start planning the process for it, like, yes, we have our Zooms and stuff, but I set up little WhatsApp groups for each of us. Brilliant. So each one of them are in the loop. So we never want to get to a wedding day and say, I didn't know about that. So each one of them are in the loop, and you should see the banter that goes on in some of those WhatsApp. So you're right. You WhatsApp them through, like, because literally the phone is on me 24/7.
Yeah.
But I may not be on social media. So emails or WhatsApps, they're the best things.
Best way to go. So it is. Hey, look, me and you are nearly after talking there for an hour, and we haven't talked to each other in probably 20 years. So we haven't. Like, I'm so grateful. I am so thankful. I really am. I really love the fact that me and you got to sit down here and have an actual, like, really good conversation that I hope a lot of people learn a lot of things from, understand a lot of things as well, and know the options that are out there for kind of everybody. But and
if they do have questions, if they want to put them through yourself when they come to myself, there's no panic. Certainly we can do a question and answer thing if people would like. And another thing before I do let you go, is there is keep an eye out, and I know I'm bringing it back to that. there is a few things around like Drogheda and debt cafes. Now that doesn't mean they're a cafe that's full of debt.
Yeah.
It is it's a place where you can go, and if you have questions, there is one in Drogheda.
Wow.
It's a lady called Sarah Gardner who runs it with a celebrant friend of hers. They're purely funeral celebrant.
Yeah.
But she would do a debt cafe, we'd say once a quarter. And like I remember, like you do try to attend them as many as you can. You know that, and people come and have genuine questions, and that's where you go to answer the questions. And like she tries to get different venues. Like we'd say one of them, she went to a local funeral director, and people came. We bring tea, coffee, buns, a whole lot.
Yeah.
And the funeral director answered everyone's question, like, what happens to your body after you pass away? What's the care process?
Wow.
What is that? You know, like, because these are questions that you wouldn't go into an
Yeah.
and ask. And that's what the Debt Cafe is about. Or for people who have just lost somebody. And like you know yourself, Kieran, like what you call it, when you lose somebody, people only can listen for so long. And I don't mean that like that. Like,
no,
you feel like after a short period of time that you can't stop. You have to stop talking about it because, like, what you call it, because people think that come on, move on at this stage. Well, it's not, because you know yourself, it takes years.
Yeah.
And that's not to frighten anybody. So it's nice to come to a place like that where it's like-minded people. You're there having a chat. And then you can share your own experience. So keep an eye on them, what you call it. I'll post it on my Facebook. I know there's one coming up, I think, next month.
Yeah.
I'll post it
That's
on my
brilliant.
what you call it. So debt cafes. So now they're not cafes full of debt.
No.
A great place for people to go and start a conversation. And one of the questions where I think at one of them was, what is your final piece of music that you would like to?
Yeah, that's
that's a massive thing. And I was going there kind of going, I don't know, because it could change one day to the next.
Yeah.
What do you call it? So that is, like, if you put me on the spot now and ask me what would I like, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I always said Frank Sinatra my way.
Oh,
because I'm pretty sure I done most of this my way. So,
but isn't that the way to have it when you look back at life? When you get to that age, that you've done everything that you should have. Like that, I'm delighted I done it that way.
Well, that's why I did this, like, you know what I mean? Because obviously with the previous show and that, like, and it ended kind of abruptly, and I was like, I'm not done yet. You know what I mean? There's stuff I still want to do, and the charity work as well that I want to do, and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I was like, in 10 years' time, I'd love to be able to say, you know what? I did what I actually wanted to do with this. You know what I mean? I raised X amount of money. I spoke to this person. I spoke to that person. I think that's
a bit of money now at this stage, haven't you?
So going to be the newest one, which I'm going to be chatting about in a wee bit, right? You know, I'll do it right now. So next month in September, right, I'm doing 307 kilometers for SOSAD. The reason I'm doing it, and we already spoke of this, I had a good friend of mine, a lifelong friend called Morris Coffey, who unfortunately passed away in May. I am doing it because his two favorite teams was Dundalk Football Club Dundalk, which is Oriel Park in town, and Everton, which is Goodison Park in England. I can't walk across water yet, so I'm just going to walk 307 kilometers with some of the family as well, which is very important to me as well. They're fully supportive of this, and I'm setting a target of €1,055. And the reason for that is, and I know me and you said this at the start, right, is because if I hit that, that means I will have raised on my own $5,000 for the 3 different charity walks that I've done in the last kind of 14 months. And that's just the money on my own, not stuff that we did previously. But so that's my target.
And that's amazing. And hats off to yourself for even doing that. And like, I know we spoke about this before we came on air.
Yeah.
What you call that? We don't talk enough about those things, you know, like the likes of SOSAD and stuff.
Yeah.
And like we were speaking about it, that there is so much out there, and I think that we need more education around it, as we all.
Of course.
Certainly more education and more conversations, because it is just it needs to be.
Look, come here. I'd be thinking we need to set up depressed cafes, and we need to set up anxiety cafes,
and not like look at that Castle Bellingham. That was a fantastic.
Patrice. Like we had her on for a chat on the other show, and like brilliant. They had a barn dance there not that long ago, and they're constantly doing stuff. It's brilliant that they're covering such a big area, that they're trying to help so many people. You know what I mean? When you go through your own personal pain, it'll either leave you not willing to do anything for anybody, or it will leave you wanting to help as many people as you possibly can. And Patrice deserves nothing but love and respect for what she is trying to do up there, which is just Absolutely incredible. So it is.
And it's amazing. It really, really is. So hats off to her. So yes, there should be more conversations about it. And I think over time that will come. But hats off to yourself for raising the money and for doing that. That's an absolutely amazing. So
Thank
hats
you
off.
so. Thank you very much.
With the talking about 10 years' time, no better man to sit and chatterbox like myself. We just switch the camera off always.
I know at this stage it's like I don't even know. I think I can only post like an hour-long episode on Facebook and Instagram, so I'm just gonna have to cut the thing now, like, you know what I mean, just to make sure we're underneath the hour. But no, honestly, thank you like so much from the bottom of my heart. I really, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Hey,
it was brilliant, and thank you so much for inviting me on. And we'll chat to you soon. All right.
Thanks, Gareth.
Take it easy. Bye, Kieran. Bye.